In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where ancient civilizations have risen and fallen like cosmic tides, humanity stands as the youngest species to reach the stars. We are considered primitive, aggressive, and foolishly stubborn by the elder races. They whisper that humans lack the wisdom to understand true power, that we rush headlong into danger where angels fear to tread. But what they don't understand is that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons, it's our refusal to bow before the impossible. When the universe presents us with a problem that has plagued civilizations for millennia, we don't seek ancient wisdom or wait for divine intervention. We grab our tools, roll up our sleeves, and get to work. This is the story of how a simple farmer from Earth's agricultural colonies encountered something that had terrorized the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and discovered that sometimes, the most cosmic of problems requires the most human of solutions. Sometimes, what the universe needs isn't a hero with a sword or a sage with ancient knowledge. Sometimes, it just needs someone willing to lift the cover and see what's really underneath. Marcusjan had been farming the red clay soil of Kepler 442b for 15 years when the dragon fell from the sky. The morning started like any other on the agricultural world that humans had dubbed New Nebraska. Marcus rolled out of bed at dawn, pulled on his work boots, and stepped onto the porch of his modest farmhouse. The twin suns cast their orange glow across endless fields of modified wheat that swayed in the gentle breeze. In the distance, the automated harvesters hummed their mechanical lullabies as they worked through the grain. It was a peaceful life, exactly what Marcus had wanted when he left Earth's overcrowded cities behind. No traffic, no pollution, no corporate politics, just him, his land, and the simple satisfaction of growing food to feed the expanding human colonies. The first sign something was wrong came at mid-morning when his quantum communicator crackled to life. The voice on the other end belonged to Sarah Martinez, the colony administrator, and she sounded terrified. "Marcus, we need you to stay indoors immediately. Lock your doors and don't go outside under any circumstances." Marcus paused in his inspection of the irrigation systems. "What's going on, Sarah? Equipment malfunction?" "Negative. We've got an unidentified vessel that crashed about 12 kilometers from your position. Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy readings. The Galactic Council emergency frequency is going crazy with warnings about something called a void dragon. They're telling all human settlements to evacuate immediately." Marcus looked up at the clear orange sky. In his 15 years on New Nebraska, the most dangerous thing he'd encountered was a pack of native herbivores that occasionally trampled his fence lines. "A dragon? Come on, Sarah. What's really going on?" "I'm serious, Marcus. The council races are terrified. The nearest Centaurian patrol ship is 3 days out, and they're refusing to come any closer. They're saying humans need to abandon the entire system until a council fleet can deal with this thing." "Abandon the system?" Marcus walked to his truck and climbed into the driver's seat. 15 years of work, 15 years of building something from nothing. "Like hell I'm abandoning anything. I'll take a look and report back." "Marcus, no." The readings were getting, he switched off the communicator and started the truck. Whatever had crashed, it was probably just some piece of space junk with a malfunctioning reactor. The alien races always seemed to panic about things humans handled routinely. They acted like everything in the universe was some cosmic catastrophe waiting to happen. The drive across the plains took him 40 minutes, following dirt roads that cut between fields of grain and protein vats. As he got closer to the crash site, he noticed the vegetation looked different. The normally robust crops appeared wilted, their leaves curled and blackened at the edges. The air itself felt heavy, charged with an energy that made his skin tingle. Then, he saw it. The vessel sat in the center of what had once been Johnson's prize wheat field, now a crater of scorched earth that stretched for nearly a kilometer in all directions. But, calling it a vessel seemed inadequate. It looked more like a mountain that had fallen from space, a massive structure of black metal and crystal that pulsed with veins of purple energy. Spires twisted upward from its surface like the horns of some prehistoric beast, and the whole thing hummed with a low frequency that Marcus could feel in his bones. He parked the truck at the crater's edge and grabbed his emergency kit from the back. The kit contained standard colony equipment, a portable scanner, emergency medical supplies, and a plasma cutter for dealing with debris. He'd used similar tools countless times to clear fallen trees and repair damaged equipment. As he approached the structure, his scanner went crazy. Energy readings spiked beyond measurable limits, and the device detected atmospheric distortions that shouldn't have been possible. But what struck Marcus most was the sound coming from inside the vessel, a low, mournful wailing that seemed to carry an undertone of desperate communication. He walked around the perimeter, looking for any kind of entrance. The surface appeared seamless, but his scanner indicated hollow spaces within. The wailing grew louder as he completed his circuit, and he could swear there was a pattern to it, almost like it was trying to talk to him. Marcus had grown up on a farm back on Earth, helping his grandfather repair everything from ancient tractors to modern fusion generators. His grandfather had taught him that every machine, no matter how complex, had a basic function. Find the function, understand the problem, apply the solution. Okay, he said aloud, addressing the structure. What's your problem? The wailing stopped. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Hello? The sound resumed, but different now. Less mournful, more hopeful? It was definitely trying to communicate. He activated his communicator and tried to patch into the colony's translation database, but the signal was being blocked by interference from the structure. He spent the next hour examining the vessel's exterior, running his scanner along every surface he could reach. The energy readings were incredibly complex, but they reminded him of something he'd seen before. The pattern was similar to the quantum resonance chambers used in agricultural terraforming equipment. Highly sophisticated, but operating on principles he understood. Finally, near what he guessed was the base of the structure, his scanner detected a variation in the hull density. He ran his hands along the surface until he found what felt like a slight depression. When he pressed against it, a section of the black metal suddenly became transparent. Inside, he could see a chamber filled with what looked like technological equipment mixed with organic components. And, in the center of it all, partially obscured by a complex array of cables and energy conduits, was something that made his breath catch in his throat. It was definitely alive, and it was definitely not human. The creature was enormous, easily 20 meters from nose to tail, covered in scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight black. Its head was distinctly draconic, with intelligent eyes that fixed on Marcus the moment the hull became transparent. But it wasn't the creature's appearance that shocked him, it was its condition. The dragon was clearly dying. Its scales were dull and lifeless in patches, and various mechanical devices seemed to be attached to its body, pumping fluids and energy in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to sustain life. The creature's eyes held an expression Marcus had seen before, on the faces of terminally ill patients back on Earth. It was suffering, and it knew it. The dragon raised its massive head and pressed it against the transparent section of hull. Its mouth moved, and Marcus heard the wailing sound again, but now he could see it was deliberate communication. The creature was trying to tell him something. Marcus pulled out his portable scanner and aimed it at the dragon. The readings confirmed his suspicions. The creature was being kept alive by the machines, but they were failing. Its life signs were erratic and declining. Whatever the dragon was, wherever it had come from, it was trapped in a dying vessel with failing life support. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery. As his scanner analyzed the vessel's systems, Marcus realized something that made him sit down heavily on the scorched ground. The dragon wasn't a passenger in this vessel. It was the vessel. The entire structure was somehow grown around or integrated with the creature's body. The ship's systems were connected to its nervous system, its energy reserves were tied to its life force, and its current trajectory through space was being controlled by its dying mind. The dragon had flown here deliberately. Marcus looked up at the creature's face, meeting its intelligent gaze. "You came here on purpose, didn't you? You're looking for something." The dragon's response was immediate. It pressed harder against the hull, and the wailing changed in pitch and rhythm. Even without a translator, Marcus could hear the desperation in the sound. The creature was begging. But begging for what? He spent the rest of the day studying the vessel from every angle he could reach. His scanner gradually built up a picture of the ship's internal systems, and what he discovered challenged everything he thought he knew about technology. The vessel operated on principles that were simultaneously incredibly advanced and, surprisingly, familiar. It was organic technology, but organic technology guided by engineering principles that humans could understand and work with. As the twin suns began to set, painting the crater in shades of red and gold, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He activated his plasma cutter and began working on the hull section where the dragon had been pressing its head. The metal parted like paper under the focused energy beam, revealing an airlock that had been hidden beneath the surface. The dragon's eyes widened as it watched him work, and the wailing changed again, this time carrying what Marcus could only describe as hope. When the airlock cycled open and Marcus stepped inside the alien vessel, he had no idea that he was about to become the first human to solve a problem that had terrorized the galaxy for over 1,000 years. He was just a farmer trying to help a dying creature. But, sometimes, that's all the universe really needs. The interior of the vessel was a maze of organic corridors that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The walls were warm to the touch and felt more like living tissue than metal. Marcus followed the main corridor toward the central chamber where the dragon waited, his boots making soft splashing sounds on the floor, which seemed to secrete a thin layer of fluid that his scanner identified as a complex nutrient solution. When he finally reached the central chamber, the full scope of the dragon's situation became clear. The creature was enormous, even larger than it had appeared from outside. Its body was integrated into the ship's systems through thousands of connection points, some technological, others appearing to be symbiotic biological interfaces. Tubes and cables fed into ports along its spine, while crystalline structures grew from its skull and connected to the ship's navigation systems. But what struck Marcus most was the dragon's expression when it saw him enter the chamber. Pure relief flooded those ancient, intelligent eyes. The dragon spoke, its voice transmitted directly through the ship's communication systems in a language Marcus didn't recognize. But the ship's systems immediately began working to establish a translation protocol, analyzing his responses and building a linguistic bridge. Within minutes, words began forming in Marcus's head, not heard through his ears, but somehow placed directly into his thoughts by the ship's quantum communication array. Finally, the dragon's voice was weak but clear. A species, with the courage to answer the call. The call? Marcus approached carefully, his scanner still active. You've been calling for help? 4 generations of your kind. I have searched. The elder races, they fear what I am, fear what I carry. But, your species is young enough to see past the terror. Marcus studied the readings on his scanner. The dragon's life signs were clearly failing, but there was something else, an energy pattern unlike anything in his database. What are you? And why did you come here? The dragon's massive head turned toward him, and Marcus saw something that shocked him more than the creature's appearance or even its integration with the ship. In those ancient eyes, he saw something distinctly, recognizably human. He saw hope. I am Vorthak the Ancient, last of the Void Dragons. And I have come to your worlds, because your species has something mine has lost. Something the galaxy needs, if it is to survive what is coming. What's coming? Death, Vorthak whispered. Death beyond imagining. And I carry the only thing that can stop it. But I am dying, human. The burden I carry, it consumes me. I cannot hold it much longer. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's atmosphere. What do you need me to do? The dragon's eyes closed, and, for a moment Marcus thought the creature had died. Then, they opened again, and in them was a request that would echo across the galaxy. I need you to kill me. Marcus stared at the dying dragon for a long moment, processing what he just heard. You want me to kill you? Not in the way you understand death. Vorthak's mental voice was growing weaker. I need you to sever my connection to this vessel. To free what I carry, before it dies with me. What exactly are you carrying? The dragon's eyes closed again, and, suddenly, the entire chamber filled with light. Images flashed through Marcus's mind, visions transmitted directly from Vorthak's memories. He saw vast fleets of ships unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, vessels that seemed to be made of living shadow and malevolent energy. He saw worlds burning, entire star systems going dark as something consumed them from within. The Devourers, Vorthak whispered. ancient beyond measure, hungry beyond comprehension. They sleep in the void between galaxies, but something has awakened them. They are coming, human. Coming to consume everything, every world, every star, every thinking being in this galaxy. The vision shifted, showing Marcus something else. Deep within Vorthak's body, connected to his life force through biological interfaces more complex than anything human science had ever imagined, was a sphere of pure energy. It pulsed with colors that had no names, and even viewing it through the dragon's memories made Marcus's head ache. The heart of creation, Vorthak explained. The last fragment of the cosmic force that brought life to this galaxy. My people, we were its guardians for 10 million years. But we are gone now, all gone save me. And I am dying. Why me? Marcus asked. Why bring it to humans? There are species out there with technology that makes ours look like stone tools. Because they are afraid. Vorthak's head lifted slightly, and Marcus could see the enormous effort it took. The Zentaurians, the council races, they worship power, but they fear responsibility. They would study the heart, debate its use, form committees and councils. By the time they acted, the Devourers would have consumed half the galaxy. Another vision flashed through Marcus's mind: humans in their early space age, taking risks that other species considered suicidal. Humans diving into combat against impossible odds, humans building cities on worlds others had written off as uninhabitable, humans facing the unknown with nothing but determination and improvised solutions. Your species, you act while others debate. You see a problem, and you solve it. The heart needs to be properly integrated with a living host. The process is dangerous, potentially fatal. The council races, they would never risk it. Marcus ran his scanner over the energy readings emanating from deep within the dragon's body. The patterns were incredibly complex, but there was something familiar about them. They reminded him of the quantum field generators used in advanced terraforming operations, technology he'd worked with extensively during his early years on New Nebraska. This integration process, he said slowly. It's not that different from quantum field harmonization, is it? You're essentially creating a stable resonance between the heart and a biological nervous system. Vorthak's eyes widened in surprise. You understand? How is that possible? We use similar principles in agricultural terraforming. Different scale, different purpose, but the underlying quantum mechanics are the same. Marcus studied the readings more carefully. The heart is basically a quantum field generator with consciousness, isn't it? It needs to be synchronized with another consciousness to function properly. Yes, but the process of transfer, it will kill me. And there is no guarantee that the new host will survive the integration. Marcus nodded slowly. He'd seen similar risks in terraforming operations. Sometimes the only way to stabilize a failing quantum field was to completely reset the system, a process that usually destroyed the original field generator. How long do we have? Hours, perhaps less. The connection points are failing, my life force can no longer sustain the containment fields. Marcus activated his communicator and tried to contact the colony, but the interference was getting worse. Static filled the channel, punctuated by fragments of terrified voices as reports came in from across the system. Other ships were appearing throughout human space, not devourers, but refugees. Species that had never contacted humanity before were suddenly desperate to reach human worlds, all fleeing from something in the galactic core. The Devourers, they have already begun, Vorthak confirmed. The Outer Rim civilizations, they fell first. Now the spiral arms are being consumed. Your species has perhaps months before they reach this sector. And this heart of creation can stop them? It can, if properly wielded. But it requires a host willing to risk everything. The power it contains, it could destroy a star, or breathe life into dead worlds. In the wrong hands, it becomes as dangerous as the Devourers themselves. Marcus looked around the chamber, taking in the incredible technology that surrounded him. Biomechanical interfaces that could integrate consciousness with cosmic forces, life support systems that had kept a dying creature alive for centuries, navigation systems that could traverse galactic distances. It was all far beyond human understanding, but the basic principles resonance, integration, symbiosis, these were concepts he'd worked with his entire career. "All right," he said finally. "Tell me what I need to do." You would truly risk this? You understand, you may not survive?" "I understand that if I don't try, everyone in the galaxy dies anyway." Marcus pulled off his work jacket and began examining the various connection points around the chamber. "Besides, I've been handling dangerous quantum field operations for 20 years. This is just a bigger field." For the first time since Marcus had entered the chamber, something like hope appeared in the dragon's ancient eyes. "The process, it is complex. First, we must prepare the transfer chamber. There, behind me, you will find the integration pod." Marcus walked around the dragon's massive body and discovered what looked like a medical bay designed for someone roughly human-sized. The pod was clearly organic technology, its walls lined with the same connection points that linked Vortak to the ship's systems. "Your people, they sent out scouts, didn't they?" Marcus realized. "You've been preparing for this possibility. You knew you might need to transfer the heart to another species." "We hoped. For 1,000 years, we searched for a species with the right combination of courage and adaptability. Most races, they are either too cautious or too reckless. Your species, you take calculated risks. You act on incomplete information, but you plan for contingencies." Marcus began examining the pod's systems with his scanner. The technology was incredibly sophisticated, but the operational principles were similar to the medical pods used in human colony ships. Life support, neural interface, quantum field harmonization, all concepts he'd encountered before in various forms. "The integration process, how long does it take?" "Unknown, with your species. With my people, it required several days." "But your neural structures, they are different. More adaptable." "It could be faster. Or it could kill me in minutes." "Yes." Marcus nodded and began checking his equipment. His scanner, his portable medical kit, his emergency beacon, everything he'd need if something went wrong. It wasn't much, but it was what he had. "Marcus." Vortak's voice was barely a whisper now. "Before we begin, there is something else you must understand. The heart, it will change you. If you survive the integration, you will no longer be entirely human. The power it contains, it comes with a consciousness of its own. You will share your mind with something ancient and cosmic." "What kind of consciousness?" "The echo of the force that created life itself. It is not malevolent, but it is vast beyond comprehension. Some who have carried the heart, they became lost in its perspective. They forgot their own identity, became something else entirely." Marcus considered this. In his years of terraforming work, he'd interfaced with quantum systems that temporarily expanded human consciousness. The experience was always overwhelming, but he'd learned to maintain his sense of self by focusing on specific, personal details, memories of his grandfather's farm, the smell of fresh bread, the sound of rain on a tin roof. "I'll manage," he said. "I've got strong roots." "Roots?" "Something that keeps me grounded. Reminds me who I am." Marcus began removing his work shirt and boots, preparing for the integration pod. "My grandfather used to say that a man could handle any kind of power as long as he never forgot where he came from." Vortak's massive head turned to watch him prepare. "Your grandfather, was he wise?" "Wise enough to teach a city kid how to grow things in dirt. Wise enough to teach me that every problem has a solution if you're willing to work at it." Marcus paused at the edge of the integration pod. "Is there anything else I need to know?" "The transfer, it will be painful. For both of us. I will experience death as the heart separates from my life force. You will experience something like birth. But the birth of something that has never existed before. A human carrying the power of creation itself?" "Yes." Marcus took a deep breath and stepped into the pod. The organic walls immediately began to shift around him, creating a perfect fit for his body. Dozens of connection points emerged from the walls, positioning themselves near his major nerve centers. "Once the process begins, there is no stopping it." "Are you certain?" Marcus thought about his farm, his peaceful life, the simple satisfaction of growing food for the hungry. Then, he thought about the visions Vorthak had shown him, entire worlds consumed by living darkness, civilizations reduced to ash and silence. I'm certain. Then, prepare yourself, Marcus Chen of Earth. Prepare to become something the galaxy has never seen before. The connection points touched his skin, and Marcus felt a jolt of energy that made his entire nervous system light up like a Christmas tree. Through the ship's communication system, he could hear Vorthak beginning some kind of ritual chant in a language older than human civilization. But what struck him most was that it wasn't just a chant, it was also a farewell. The last of the Void Dragons was saying goodbye to 10 million years of guardianship, passing the responsibility to a species that had been walking upright for less than 1,000,000 years. As the integration process began and cosmic fire started flowing through his veins, Marcus held tight to his grandfather's words, every problem has a solution if you're willing to work at it. Even if the problem was saving the galaxy. Even if the solution was becoming something that had never existed before. The energy surged, and Marcus Chen, farmer from New Nebraska, began his transformation into humanity's first guardian of the heart of creation. The pain was beyond description. It felt like every cell in his body was being rewritten from the quantum level up. Through the ship's neural link, he could feel Vorthak's life force ebbing as the heart of creation was slowly severed from the dragon's dying nervous system. But something else was happening too. As the cosmic energy flowed into Marcus's body, he began to understand things that no human had ever understood before. He could sense the quantum fields that held matter together, feel the gravitational zones of distant stars, perceive the flow of time itself as something that could be touched and shaped. And, through it all, he held on to the memory of dirt under his fingernails and the satisfaction of a hard day's work. No matter how cosmic his perspective became, he was still Marcus Chen, farmer, problem solver, stubborn human being who refused to quit when things got difficult. The galaxy was about to discover just how dangerous that combination could be. The integration took 3 days. For Marcus, it felt like 3 lifetimes. The heart of creation didn't just merge with his nervous system, it rewrote his entire biological structure from the cellular level up. His bones became denser, infused with crystalline structures that could channel cosmic energy. His muscles developed new fiber types that could move at superhuman speeds when necessary. His brain grew new neural pathways that allowed him to process information at rates that would have driven a normal human insane. But the most profound changes were the ones he couldn't see. His consciousness expanded to encompass perspectives that spanned millions of years. He could perceive the quantum foam that underlied reality, feel the pulse of dark matter as it flowed between galaxies, sense the birth and death of stars as easily as he once monitored the growth of wheat. Through it all, Vorthak stayed with him, sharing his memories and knowledge even as his own life force faded. The ancient dragon showed Marcus the history of the Void Dragon race, beings who had evolved in the space between galaxies, feeding on cosmic radiation and quantum fluctuations. They had discovered the heart of creation by accident, during an exploration of a dying universe that existed in a parallel dimensional pocket. We thought we were saving it, Vorthak whispered as his strength ebbed. A fragment of pure creation, from a reality that was ending. We brought it here, to preserve it. We never imagined it would become necessary to preserve our own reality. The Devourers had come later, entities from the same dying universe, but representing the opposite force. Where the heart brought life and growth, the Devourers brought consumption and entropy. They had followed the heart across dimensional boundaries, seeking to complete the destruction that had consumed their original reality. They are not evil, in the way your species understands evil, Vorthak explained. They are the natural end of all things. Entropy given consciousness. They cannot be reasoned with, cannot be bargained with. They can only be stopped. On the second day of integration, Marcus began to hear the heart itself. Not words, exactly, but something deeper, the fundamental patterns that shaped reality. It was like listening to the source code of the universe, if that source code were written in music and mathematics and pure intention. The heart showed him what it was capable of. With focused intention, he could accelerate the growth of living things, bringing dead worlds to life in moments. He could manipulate gravity and space-time, creating wormholes that spanned galactic distances. He could even affect the flow of time itself, though the heart warned him that such actions carried enormous risks. But the power came with a price. The heart was ancient beyond human comprehension, and its consciousness was vast. Sometimes Marcus felt himself becoming lost in its perspective, viewing human concerns as fleeting and insignificant. When this happened, he forced himself to focus on simple, concrete things: the smell of fresh bread, the texture of soil between his fingers, the sound of his grandfather's voice explaining how to properly plant corn. These human memories became his anchor, keeping him grounded even as cosmic power flowed through his transformed body. On the third day, as the integration process neared completion, Vorthak began to fade rapidly. The dragon's massive body became translucent, his life force almost completely transferred to Marcus. "The ship, it will respond to you now," Vorthak whispered. "But, remember, you are not replacing me. You are becoming something new. Something the galaxy has never seen before." "What am I becoming?" "The first human guardian. Your species' answer to a cosmic threat. You have the power to save every living thing or destroy them all." Marcus felt the weight of that responsibility settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. Through his expanded consciousness, he could perceive the devourers approaching the galaxy's spiral arms. Entire star systems were going dark as the entities consumed everything in their path, not just planets and stars, but the very spacetime that held them together. "How do I stop them?" "With the heart, you can create barriers in spacetime itself. Walls that even the devourers cannot cross. But the power required, it will drain you completely. You may survive, you may not. And if I don't try? Everything dies. Every world, every species, every possibility for life. The galaxy becomes empty. Silent. Forever." Vorthak's form was barely visible now, more memory than substance. "Marcus Chen, farmer of Earth. I pass to you the guardianship that my people have carried for 10 million years. Use it well." The ancient dragon faded completely, leaving behind only an echo of gratitude that resonated through the ship's neural networks. Marcus opened his eyes and sat up in the integration pod. The transformation was complete. He looked down at his hands and saw that they now glowed with a soft, internal light. When he focused his attention, he could see the quantum fields that held his atoms together, could sense the flow of energy through his nervous system, could perceive the ship around him not as a collection of separate components but as a living system with its own consciousness. Standing up, he felt stronger than he'd ever been, but also strangely light, as if gravity had less hold on him than before. When he walked to the chamber's viewing port, his footsteps left brief impressions of light on the organic floor. Outside, the landscape of New Nebraska looked different through his enhanced perception. He could see the life force flowing through every plant, could sense the mineral composition of the soil, could feel the planet's magnetic field like a tangible presence. But, more than that, he could perceive the damage that was spreading across the galaxy like a cancer. In the distance, barely visible even to his enhanced senses, he could detect the edges of the consumption. Worlds were simply ceasing to exist. Not destroyed, not consumed in any conventional sense, but translated into something else entirely. The devourers weren't just killing life, they were unmaking the very foundations of reality. Marcus activated the ship's communication systems, which now responded to his thoughts as easily as his own limbs. The technology that had seemed incomprehensible 3 days ago now felt as familiar as the farming equipment he'd used for years. He opened a channel to the colony administrator. "Sarah, this is Marcus. Are you receiving?" "Marcus." Sarah's voice was nearly hysterical with relief. "Where the hell have you been? We've been trying to reach you for 3 days. The situation is getting worse." "I know. Sarah, I need you to patch me through to the Galactic Council emergency frequency." "Marcus, that channel is restricted to just do it. Please." "And, Sarah? You might want to sit down for this." A few minutes later, Marcus found himself connected to the Council's Emergency Coordination Center. The being on the other end identified itself as Coordinator Vexthal, a Zentorian official whose voice carried the weight of barely controlled panic. "Human vessel, you are ordered to withdraw from the contaminated system immediately. The entity known as the Void Dragon represents a clear and present danger to the Void Dragon is dead, Marcus interrupted. I'm afraid you're talking to his replacement. Silence on the channel. Please repeat that statement, human vessel. My name is Marcus Chen, and I am now the guardian of the heart of creation. I have the power to stop the devourers, but I'm going to need your cooperation. Impossible. No species has successfully integrated with Void Dragon technology. The quantum fields alone would. Marcus focused his attention and sent a brief pulse of energy through the communication channel. Every receiving station in the network suddenly registered power readings that should have been physically impossible. Coordinator Vexthal, Marcus said quietly, I appreciate your skepticism. But, right now, I'm the only thing standing between the devourers and the complete annihilation of this galaxy. So I suggest we skip the disbelief phase and move directly to the cooperation phase. Another long silence. What do you require? First, I need a complete tactical assessment of the devourer advance. Second, I need you to coordinate the evacuation of all populated systems along their projected path. And, third, I need you to trust me to do something that's never been done before. Which is? Marcus looked out at the stars, his enhanced perception already calculating the massive quantum field manipulations that would be necessary. I'm going to build a wall around the galaxy. A barrier in spacetime itself that the devourers can't cross. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would kill any normal being, yes. Fortunately, I'm no longer normal. Marcus began activating the ship's navigation systems, preparing for a journey that would take him to the galactic core. Coordinate with the other council races. I'll need real-time updates on the devourer positions as I work. Marcus Chen, Vexthal's voice was subdued. If what you say is true, if you truly carry the power of the ancient guardians, then you represent our only hope. I represent humanity's answer to a cosmic problem, coordinator. And humanity's answer is usually the same, roll up our sleeves and get to work. Marcus cut the communication and turned his attention to the ship systems. The vessel that had once been Vorthax's body was now becoming something new, a hybrid of Void Dragon biotechnology and human ingenuity. Under his influence, the ship began to change, growing new systems and capabilities that reflected his enhanced understanding of both cosmic forces and practical engineering. As the ship lifted off from New Nebraska, Marcus took one last look at his farm through the viewports. The fields of grain still swayed in the wind, the automated harvesters still moved through their mechanical patterns, and his modest farmhouse still sat peacefully under the orange sky. It was a good life he was leaving behind. But, if he succeeded in what he was about to attempt, there would be countless other worlds where farmers could grow their crops in peace, where children could play under alien suns, where life could flourish instead of being consumed by cosmic hunger. The ship accelerated toward the galactic core, where Marcus would make his stand against entropy itself. He was no longer entirely human, but the human part of him, the part that refused to quit when faced with impossible odds, remained strong. The devourers were about to discover that humanity had a particular talent for solving problems that everyone else considered unsolvable. They were about to meet a farmer who had become something the universe had never seen before, a guardian who understood both cosmic power and the simple satisfaction of a job well done. As the ship entered hyperspace, Marcus began the calculations that would either save the galaxy or destroy it. Either way, he would face the outcome with the same stubborn determination that had made him successful at growing wheat on an alien world. Some problems just required a bigger toolbox. And now Marcus had access to the biggest toolbox in the universe, the creative force that had brought life to a billion worlds. Time to see what a human could accomplish with the power of creation itself. The journey to the galactic core took Marcus through regions of space that no human had ever seen before. His transformed ship moved through dimensions that existed parallel to normal spacetime, following paths that the Void Dragons had used for millions of years. As he traveled, Marcus maintained constant communication with the Galactic Council's Emergency Coordination Center. The reports coming in painted a picture of devastation that grew worse by the hour. Entire sectors were simply ceasing to exist as the devourers advanced, leaving behind regions of space where matter and energy no longer functioned according to normal physical laws. The Andromedans have lost their entire homeworld cluster, Coordinator Vexthal reported during one transmission. 17 billion beings, simply, gone. Not killed, not destroyed. Unmade. The space where their worlds existed now registers as a null zone on our sensors. Marcus absorbed this information while simultaneously monitoring the cosmic energy flows around him. Through the heart of creation, he could perceive the Devourers advance as a spreading darkness that consumed not just matter but the very potential for existence. They weren't destroying things, they were editing them out of reality itself. How much time do I have? Marcus asked. Based on their current rate of advance, they'll reach the core worlds within 6 standard days. After that. Vexthal's voice trailed off. After that, the gravitational anomalies from the galactic core will accelerate their spread exponentially, Marcus finished. They'll consume the entire galaxy within weeks. How did you know that? Marcus smiled grimly. The heart of creation includes a complete understanding of cosmic mechanics. I can see exactly how the Devourers operate. They feed on the quantum foam that underlies spacetime, converting ordered energy into entropy. Once they reach the supermassive black hole at the galactic center, they'll have access to enough energy to remake the entire galaxy in their image. Then, what you're attempting is the only chance we have. Marcus had been working on the problem for the entire journey, using the heart's vast computational abilities to model the quantum field manipulations that would be necessary. What he was planning had never been attempted before, even by the Void Dragons at the height of their power. He was going to create a barrier in spacetime itself, not a physical wall, but a fundamental alteration in the nature of reality that would make it impossible for the Devourers to exist within the galaxy's boundaries. It would require him to manipulate the quantum fields on a galactic scale, essentially rewriting the laws of physics across hundreds of billions of star systems. The energy requirements were staggering. Even with the heart of creation's power, the effort would drain him completely. There was a significant chance that the process would kill him, and an even greater chance that he would make a mistake that would destroy the galaxy himself. But, as his grandfather used to say, sometimes you've got to risk the crop to save the farm. 3 days into the journey, Marcus detected something that made him alter his course. A cluster of ships was fleeing toward the galactic rim, refugee vessels from dozens of different species, all running from the advancing Devourers. Among them was a massive Arcship that his enhanced senses identified as carrying over 3 million beings. "This is Guardian Marcus Chen to the refugee fleet," he transmitted. "I'm reading massive engine failures on your lead vessel." The response came from a Quellex commander whose voice carried exhaustion and despair. "Human vessel, we've been running for 12 days. Our quantum cores are failing, and we've lost 17 ships to cascade failures. We're not going to make it to the safe zones." Marcus studied the fleet through his enhanced perception. The ships were indeed failing, their engines pushed beyond safe parameters, their life support systems strained to the breaking point. Without intervention, most of the vessels would break down within hours, stranding millions of beings in the path of the Devourers. The logical choice was to continue on his mission. The lives of 3 million refugees weighed against the survival of the entire galaxy wasn't really a choice at all. But Marcus found himself thinking about his neighbors back on New Nebraska, the Johnson family whose wheat field had been destroyed by Vorthax's crash landing, the Martinex clan who ran the colony's recycling center, old Henrik who delivered mail to the remote farms. Real people with real lives, just like the beings in those failing ships. "Refugee fleet, reduce your speed and prepare for emergency assistance," Marcus transmitted. "Human vessel, we appreciate the offer, but unless you're carrying replacement quantum cores for 47 ships, I'm carrying something better." Marcus brought his ship alongside the failing Arcship and reached out with the heart's power. Through his enhanced senses, he could perceive the quantum failures that were crippling the vessel's engines, cascade resonances that were slowly destroying the ship's power systems from within. He'd seen similar failures in terraforming equipment back on New Nebraska. The solution was usually to reset the quantum fields entirely, rebuilding the resonance patterns from scratch. On a terraforming generator, it was a delicate operation that required specialized tools and several hours of careful work. On a starship with 3 million lives hanging in the balance, it was something no sane being would attempt. Marcus reached out with the heart's power and gently touched the Arcship's quantum core. The energy flows were incredibly complex, but the underlying principles were the same ones he'd worked with for 20 years. Find the source of the problem, isolate the failing component, rebuild the system around it. It took him 30 minutes to completely reconstruct the Ark ship's power systems, strengthening them beyond their original specifications and adding resonance buffers that would prevent future cascade failures. When he was finished, the vessel was running more efficiently than it had since leaving the shipyard. "By the ancient stars," the Quellex commander whispered. "Human, what you just did, that should be impossible. Our engineers have been working on those failures for days." "Different perspective, same problem," Marcus replied, moving on to the next ship in the fleet. "Sometimes you just need to approach things from a different angle." He spent the next 6 hours moving through the refugee fleet, repairing quantum cores and power systems with the casual efficiency of a farmer maintaining his equipment. Each repair strengthened his understanding of how the heart's power could be applied to practical problems. But, more than that, working with real people facing immediate danger reminded him why he was making this journey. The cosmic scope of his mission was almost overwhelming, but helping the refugees brought it back down to a human scale. He wasn't trying to save abstract concepts like the galaxy or civilization, he was trying to save people like Mrs. Quellex, who was worried about her children, or Engineer Thorvin, who was desperately trying to keep his ship's life support running. Real people with real hopes and fears, just like the farmers and colonists back on New Nebraska. When he was finished with the repairs, the refugee fleet was running better than it had in months. The ships were able to reach safe harbor in the Outer Rim, carrying their millions of passengers to worlds that were hopefully far enough from the Devourers to survive what was coming. As Marcus resumed his journey to the galactic core, he received a transmission from Coordinator Vexthal. "Guardian Shen, we've been monitoring your activities with the refugee fleet. What you accomplished, our best engineers estimate it should have taken months of work with specialized facilities. The heart of creation has some advantages over conventional tools," Marcus replied. "Indeed. But that raises a question. If you can repair failing technology so easily, why not simply repair the damage the Devourers have caused? Restore the consumed worlds?" Marcus had been wondering about that himself. Through the heart's power, he could perceive the null zones where entire star systems had once existed. The space wasn't empty, it was worse than empty. It was a region where the fundamental forces that made existence possible had been systematically dismantled. "Because the Devourers don't just destroy things," he explained. "They unweave the quantum foundations that make reality possible. Trying to restore a consumed region would be like trying to rebuild a house when someone has removed the concept of construction itself." "But, you believe you can prevent further consumption?" "I can create a barrier that makes it impossible for the Devourers to exist within our galaxy. But, once they've consumed something, that something is gone forever." Which made his mission even more urgent. Every moment he delayed, more worlds fell to the advancing darkness. More civilizations joined the growing list of the unmade. Marcus pushed his ship to maximum speed, racing toward the galactic core where he would make his stand. The core region was a chaotic maze of gravitational anomalies, dense star clusters, and exotic matter formations. It was also the hub around which the entire galaxy rotated, the perfect place to anchor a quantum barrier that would encompass hundreds of billions of star systems. As he approached the core, Marcus began the preliminary calculations for his barrier. The mathematics involved were staggering in their complexity, requiring him to account for the gravitational effects of every significant mass in the galaxy while simultaneously mapping the quantum field variations that would anchor his cosmic construction. But, the heart of creation was designed for exactly this kind of task. The ancient artifact had been created by beings who shaped reality on a universal scale, and it provided Marcus with computational abilities that dwarfed anything technology could offer. 2 days later, he reached his destination, a region of space near the galaxy's central black hole where the quantum fields were naturally unstable. It was the perfect foundation for what he was about to attempt. Marcus positioned his ship in a stable orbit around one of the core's massive stars and began the process that would either save the galaxy or destroy it. He reached out with the heart's power, feeling for the quantum substrata that underlay normal spacetime. What he found was both beautiful and terrifying. The galaxy was alive in ways that most beings never suspected, a vast organism of interconnected energy fields that pulsed with the rhythm of a trillion beating hearts. Stars weren't just nuclear furnaces, they were nodes in a cosmic nervous system. Planets weren't just balls of rock, they were cells in an organism larger than imagination. And the Devourers were a cancer in that organism, systematically destroying the connections that held everything together. Marcus began to weave his barrier, layer by layer, using principles that combined Void Dragon biotechnology with human engineering pragmatism. Where the ancient Guardians might have built something elegant but fragile, Marcus designed something that was robust and adaptable, a barrier that could repair itself if damaged and evolve to counter new threats. The work was exhausting. Each section of the barrier required him to manipulate quantum fields across light years of space, essentially rewriting the laws of physics one star system at a time. The heart's power flowed through him like molten metal, and he could feel his transformed body struggling to channel energies that no living being was meant to control. But he kept working, driven by the memory of 3 million refugees who now had a chance to see their children grow up in safety, inspired by the vision of farmers on 1,000 worlds who would be able to plant their crops without fear of cosmic annihilation. As the barrier took shape around him, Marcus realized something that filled him with both pride and concern. What he was creating wasn't just a wall to keep the Devourers out, it was a fundamental evolution in the nature of the galaxy itself. The barrier would make the entire galaxy more stable, more resistant to entropy, more alive. He was essentially growing an immune system for a trillion-star organism. But, like any major biological change, there would be consequences he couldn't predict. The galaxy that emerged from his modifications would be fundamentally different from the one that existed before. As he began the final phase of construction, Marcus sent one last transmission to the Galactic Council. "This is Guardian Shen. I'm beginning the final integration phase. If this works, you should see the Devourer advance halt within the next few hours. If it doesn't..." "If it doesn't?" Vexthal prompted. "Then, at least we tried. And, sometimes, that's all you can do." Marcus closed the communication channel and prepared for the most dangerous part of his task, connecting the barrier to the galaxy's central black hole, using its massive gravitational field as an anchor point for the quantum modifications he'd made. It was time to find out if a farmer from New Nebraska could reshape the cosmos itself. The universe was about to discover what happened when human determination met the power of creation. The final integration required Marcus to do something that no Guardian had ever attempted: merge his consciousness directly with a supermassive black hole. The galactic center's black hole, known to human astronomers as Sagittarius A*, contained the mass of 4 million suns compressed into a region smaller than Earth's orbit. It was a gravitational monster that warped spacetime for thousands of light-years in every direction, and it was the perfect anchor point for a quantum barrier spanning the entire galaxy. Marcus approached the event horizon in his transformed ship, feeling the tremendous gravitational forces that would have torn any normal vessel apart. But his ship was no longer entirely normal, it had become a hybrid of Void Dragon biotechnology and his own enhanced understanding of cosmic mechanics. As he drew closer to the black hole, Marcus began to perceive it not as a destructive force but as something magnificent, a cosmic engine that converted matter into pure gravitational potential, a nexus where the normal laws of physics broke down and became something more fundamental. Through the heart of creation, he could sense the quantum foam that surrounded the event horizon, regions of spacetime where virtual particles flickered in and out of existence in patterns too complex for normal minds to comprehend. It was here, in this realm of impossible physics, that he would anchor his barrier. "Guardian Shen to Galactic Council," he transmitted, knowing this would likely be his last communication. "Beginning final integration. If I succeed, the barrier will activate automatically. If I fail..." "If you fail, we'll remember that humanity tried," Coordinator Vexthal replied. "Whatever you were before this, Guardian, you become something that gives the rest of us hope." Marcus smiled as he cut the transmission. Hope. His grandfather would have liked that, the idea that a stubborn farmer could give hope to an entire galaxy. He reached out with the heart's power and began the delicate process of integrating his consciousness with the black hole's gravitational field. It was like trying to shake hands with a hurricane, like attempting to have a conversation with a force of nature that existed on scales beyond human comprehension. But Marcus had learned something during his transformation that even the ancient void dragons hadn't fully understood. Power wasn't about force, it was about connection. The heart of creation worked not by overwhelming reality but by harmonizing with it, finding the natural patterns and amplifying them. The black hole wasn't just a gravitational monster, it was the heart of the galaxy, the central organizing principle around which everything else revolved. And, like any heart, it had a rhythm, a pattern that could be synchronized with. Marcus felt his consciousness expand as he merged with the black hole's gravitational field. Suddenly, he could perceive every star in the galaxy simultaneously, feel the gravitational songs of a trillion worlds, sense the slow dance of spiral arms as they rotated through space. And, through it all, he could feel the approaching darkness of the Devourers like a spreading infection in the galaxy's living tissue. Working on a scale that dwarfed human comprehension, Marcus began the final phase of his barrier construction. He wove quantum fields together like a cosmic farmer building a fence, using principles he'd learned in agriculture but applying them to the fundamental forces of reality itself. The barrier grew outward from the galactic center like a living thing, following the spiral arms and encompassing every star system in its protective embrace. Where it touched regions already consumed by the Devourers, the null zones were sealed off, quarantined like infected tissue to prevent further spread. But the effort was taking everything Marcus had. The heart of creation was pouring its power through his nervous system faster than his enhanced body could handle. He could feel his life force burning away like fuel in a cosmic engine, sustaining forces that no single being was meant to control. Through his expanded consciousness, he sensed the exact moment when the barrier encountered the Devourer's advance. The entities had been systematically consuming a cluster of worlds in the galaxy's outer rim when they suddenly found themselves unable to proceed. Marcus felt their confusion as they encountered something they'd never experienced before, a region of spacetime that simply refused to be unmade. The quantum foundations that the Devourers fed on were protected by layers of reality that regenerated faster than they could be consumed. But the Devourers weren't defeated, they were merely stopped. Marcus could sense them gathering at the barrier's edge, probing for weaknesses, trying to understand this new obstacle to their cosmic hunger. And he realized with growing concern that the barrier, while effective, was only a temporary solution. The Devourers were ancient beings with intelligence that spanned eons. Given enough time, they would find a way through or around his defenses. The galaxy needed more than just a wall, it needed a permanent solution to the entropy that the Devourers represented. It needed to become something that could actively resist the forces of cosmic decay. Marcus made a decision that would reshape the galaxy forever. Instead of simply maintaining the barrier, he began to share the heart of creation's power with the galaxy itself. Working through the gravitational fields and quantum resonances he'd established, he started distributing fragments of the heart's consciousness to every star system within the barrier. It was like planting seeds across a trillion worlds, seeds of cosmic awareness that would grow into something unprecedented. Every star would become slightly conscious, every planet would gain a fragment of the creative force that had brought life to the universe. The galaxy was evolving into something new, a cosmic organism with its own immune system, its own ability to resist entropy and decay. But the effort was killing him. Marcus could feel his enhanced body beginning to break down as the heart's power flowed through him in torrents that no living being could sustain indefinitely. His consciousness was becoming scattered across galactic distances, spread so thin that maintaining his individual identity required enormous effort. It was then that he heard something unexpected, voices calling to him through the quantum fields he'd established. Billions of beings across the galaxy, from the simplest microorganisms to the most advanced civilizations, were somehow sensing what he was doing. And they were offering to help. Marcus felt the refugees he'd saved adding their life force to his efforts. He sensed the Galactic Council members focusing their mental energy on supporting the barrier. Most surprisingly, he felt the simple farmers and colonists of New Nebraska, people who barely understood the cosmic forces involved but who somehow knew that their neighbor was fighting for their lives. The galaxy itself was waking up, and it was choosing to help him. With this support flowing through the quantum networks he'd established, Marcus was able to complete his transformation of the galaxy. The barrier became self-sustaining, drawing power from the collective life force of every being within its protection. The seeds of cosmic consciousness took root in star systems across the spiral arms, creating a network of awareness that spanned hundreds of billions of worlds. And, at the barrier's edge, the Devourers found themselves facing something they'd never encountered before, not just resistance, but active opposition. The galaxy itself was learning to fight back. Marcus felt his individual consciousness beginning to fade as the heart's power integrated fully with the galactic network he'd created. But, instead of death, he experienced something like transcendence. His awareness became part of the galaxy's new nervous system, distributed across cosmic distances but somehow still recognizably him. He was still Marcus Chen, farmer from New Nebraska, stubborn problem solver who refused to quit when things got difficult. But now he was also something more, the first guardian of a living galaxy, a cosmic farmer tending a garden that spanned light years. Through the quantum networks, he sent a final message to the beings of the galaxy: "This is Guardian Marcus Chen. The immediate threat has been contained. The devourers cannot penetrate the barrier, and the galaxy now has the ability to resist entropy on a fundamental level. But this is just the beginning. What we've created here, this partnership between consciousness and cosmic force, it's something new in the universe. We're all part of it now, all connected, all responsible for maintaining what we've built together." He paused, thinking of his grandfather's words about the importance of good soil. Take care of each other. Take care of the worlds that shelter you. And remember, every garden needs tending, even one that spans a galaxy. Years passed. The devourers eventually withdrew to search for easier prey in distant galaxies, frustrated by their inability to penetrate a barrier that grew stronger the more they tested it. The galaxy settled into a new equilibrium, with civilizations slowly adapting to the subtle changes that Marcus's modifications had introduced. On New Nebraska, life continued much as it had before. The farmers planted their crops, the harvesters moved through the fields, and people went about their daily lives with only occasional reminders that their quiet world was part of something cosmic and strange. But sometimes, when the twin suns set just right, farmers working late in their fields reported seeing lights in the aurora that moved with deliberate purpose. And sometimes, when equipment failed or crops struggled with disease, solutions would occur to people with clarity that felt like divine inspiration. Sarah Martinez, now the colony's senior administrator, kept a memorial plaque in her office with a simple inscription: Marcus Chen, farmer, neighbor, friend. He saw a problem and fixed it. It seemed like an understatement, but Marcus would have appreciated the sentiment. Throughout the galaxy, as civilizations adapted to their new reality of cosmic consciousness and shared purpose, similar monuments appeared. Not grand statues or towering spires, but simple markers acknowledging a truth that had become fundamental to galactic culture: sometimes the most cosmic problems require the most human solutions. And sometimes a farmer with a good toolbox can reshape the universe. In the quantum networks that now connected every star system, Marcus's consciousness continued its work. He tended the galactic garden he'd planted, nurturing new forms of life, mediating disputes between species, and always watching for signs of entropy that needed to be pruned away. He'd found his purpose, his grandfather would have said. He'd found good soil and made something grow. The fact that his soil happened to be made of spacetime and his crop happened to be galactic civilization was just a matter of scale. After all, farming was farming, whether you were growing wheat in Nebraska dirt or growing hope among the stars. And Marcus Chen, the galaxy's first human guardian, had always been very good at his job.